Hello, everyone. My name is Ryan Ray, and this is episode 4 of The Next Act, where I talk to my friends who are accomplished professionals who have done great things and are potentially looking for their next act. So today, I'm here with my very good friend, Rachel Azaroff. Did I pronounce that right?
You did. Thank you.
Amazing. I'm not good at pronouncing names, so I always ask. Rachel is one of the first people that I met when I started doing my whole Miami Tech ambassador thing, and I just wanted to get her here today and tell her story. So, Rachel, please tell me who you are and where you're from.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. I'm Rachel Azaroff. I've been living in Miami. I'm approaching my 3-year anniversary. I moved here from Seattle, and I grew up in Rockville, Maryland, which is a suburb of Washington, D.C.
Nice. I grew up in sort of the same area. I grew up in Pennsylvania, right down by the Maryland border. So,
nice.
So yeah, I'm very familiar with that whole area. So, how long were you in Seattle?
I was in Seattle about 7.5 years.
Wow. I was there I did my time 5 years there. Oof, that was enough for me.
Yeah, the winters are tough.
Yeah, well,
it's nice living somewhere sunny.
Yeah, and it's funny. Listen, I grew up in Pennsylvania, so I know about hard winters, cold, hard winters. But Seattle is just some other level of just gray and rainy for 6 to 8 months out of the year, and I couldn't do it.
It is, and then not seeing the sun for 1 month. It's not easy. But then I learned you take sunny trips. So I
Yes.
would go do a lot of the San Francisco, Palm Desert, Eastern Washington, Central Washington.
I went to Vegas all the time. I would always go to Vegas because it was so cheap.
Yeah.
I could basically go for free, except for the gambling part. And I would go there and just soak up the sun. I would go there, I would leave Friday night, and then be back Monday morning.
Yeah, there you go.
For $300. So that was my escape from Seattle. So what were you doing in Seattle?
Yeah, so in my time in Seattle, I did my MBA at University of Washington, and then I worked at 4 venture-backed B2B SaaS companies, and I also worked at an angel group and started some companies in that time. So really went deep in startup land.
Okay. What are some of the startups you've worked at?
Yeah, let's see. So I interned and freelanced at Aptio in business school, and when I was there, they were late stage venture backed. They went public. They were taken private by Vista, and they were actually in the last few months sold to IBM.
Okay.
And then I worked at Alliance of Angels my second year of business school, which is in the top angel investor group in the country, really active. I met with hundreds of startups, so that was really exciting and do the deal flow. And then I worked at Odin right out of business school. They resell cloud services, and I did product marketing. And I joined basically not knowing they were in the middle of getting acquired by Ingram Micro, which is a Fortune 100 company that, to be honest, I wasn't familiar with until they became my employer. And so
I have that same story. The company I currently work for, I work for a large credit bureau, and I joined a startup, and I went through the interview process, and I was in the last stage, and they called me, hey, we're sorry, we're being acquired by this huge company. And I was just like, okay. And well, we still want to hire you. Just note that you're now going from a startup to a Fortune 50 company. And I was okay.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. And, prior to moving to Seattle, I was in DC. I worked at Deloitte and did consulting. So I felt lucky that I think that experience helped me read between the lines a bit of that acquisition and what the future held. So then I decided it was probably a good move to move on to a new opportunity. And I joined Lighter Capital, and they do revenue-based lending for startups, mainly B2B SaaS. And they hired me to build out their first partnership program. They had just raised a Series B. And then, and I think this happens in startups, right? I joined and all of a sudden there was a bunch of leadership changes and strategic direction changes.
Yeah.
So it got some good work done, and I wasn't there for as long as I would have wanted based on kind of the shifts, which this happens in startups. So then actually I decided, at that time I started my first company, which is Pitched, a marketing firm helping early stage startups on pitch decks, go-to-market messaging. And that was inspired by my time at Alliance of Angels and meeting with those hundreds of startups. And often I'd sit down with the founder, and they kind of, for 20 minutes, a lot of information about their business.
It would just dump it all on you.
Pretty much. And then I'd recap it in one sentence based on how I understood it. And then we'd talk through other things, and they'd say, oh, this was so helpful. Where could I get more help this? And I didn't have a place to point them. So that kind of planted the seed for me of perhaps I could build a business around this.
Nice. So how long did you have that business for?
Yeah, ultimately 4 years.
Okay.
So I did it full-time for 2 years, part-time for 2 years. I think in hindsight, well, one, working with early stage startups, and I get it now having founded startups myself, you're very budget conscious. So the revenue was a bit tricky, one, in that regard. And then two, I don't when people are very transactional with selling.
Okay.
And I didn't want to be that. So my whole business was run on referrals.
Referrals are great.
But I think in hindsight, there was a lot of space between being a transactional salesperson and running the business the way I did.
Okay. Yeah, you always learn things. The office space we're recording this in is probably 80%, 90% referrals.
Yeah.
We're the founder here is self-funded, so there's not a lot of money for marketing. So it's basically my network plus hers and a couple of my friends. We hadn't done any marketing, but we're all referrals. So referrals can be a really powerful thing.
Oh, they definitely can. Yeah, and you've done an amazing job here. Congratulations.
Thank you. I haven't slept in 6 months, but it's good. I know. I'm just strung together with some caffeine and whatever else.
Matching setup.
Well, that's cool. So what did you do after pitched?
Yeah. So after pitched, kind of two things. One, I'm meeting all these early stage founders that are building tech enabled products that can, right, and to take a step back, services businesses you can scale to some degree, but often to get really meaningful scale, you need a tech product, right?
Yeah.
So I was kind of seeing all these founders, and then I started thinking, I could do this too. Maybe I want to pursue this path. And something I'm really passionate about is personal finance.
Okay.
And I had realized, just kind of like people in my community, friends, people I'm interacting with, people are smart, people have great jobs, people are making great salaries, and a lot of them just really, I think, not really understanding money, personal finance.
I don't understand money.
Yeah. So I got curious about that. So I got an idea for a startup, Money Buff, a personal trainer for finance.
Okay.
Focus on millennials, answering the question of, is my money going to what I care about or somewhere else? And I wanted to use AI and ML to mine data, give people insights, and kind of this idea, if you're waiting in line for a coffee, waiting for the subway or the bus to come, you have a few minutes here, a few minutes there, you could make a small action and incrementally, improve your personal finance. So it's kind of noodling on that, recruited some people to work with me part-time on it, but kind of coming off pitch and essentially not making a market salary. I also felt, again, from my personal finance standpoint, that I wanted to go back to a corporate environment for some stability, and having been at these different startups, different moments, I was looking for something where it was large enough that there was stability and I wouldn't kind of end up in a shake-up moment, but also small enough that I wouldn't be a cog in a wheel.
Yeah, I know that feeling. I've been at companies that are 2-people startups and Fortune 50 companies.
Yeah.
Microsoft, the credit bureau I currently work at. So I know that feeling, and it's really tricky sometimes to find the one that works for you.
Exactly.
Because every person needs something completely different.
Totally. Yeah, and it's so interesting for different people and different preferences. So kind of that time around, it was interesting. I interviewed at Uber and BCG and Amazon and, the whole set of companies. And in the end, I joined Avalara in their B2B SaaS, fintech, sales tax compliance. And I knew that they kind of had this imminent IPO. They had been around a little while. So it seemed kind of this right stage. And also in my career, every job I've ever had while I've been in tech is a new position around growth. And some kind of new initiative. So I was hired to do something entrepreneurial at Avalara. So it felt kind of a good next move. And also I sat in business development, and I had done partnerships, and I wanted to kind of continue growing my career in business development, partnerships, kind of the revenue side of the house.
Nice.
And growth.
So how long were you at Avalara for?
I was there for 3 years.
Okay. Nice. And where'd you go after that?
Yeah, so then after that, my last year at Avalara was when I moved to Miami.
Okay.
And, in my time at Avalara, they hired me to scale this new program that was a pilot, and I'm really proud of what was achieved. It went from low 6-figure to high 8-figure revenue growth.
Wow.
Some of the biggest brands in the world were part of that partnership program. And then my last year there, I launched this new go-to-market program around startups, building brand awareness and acquiring startups and partners in the startup ecosystem. And I think kind of twofold. One, I felt like, I was proud of what I did, and I wasn't seeing opportunities for growth within Avalara. And then two, I had been kind of noodling on my next startup idea. So with MoneyBuff, yeah, I had. So, and I think it was in 2019, I built a prototype and tested it. And one kind of feedback that came up from the users was this desire for multi-month travel and sabbaticals, career breaks, etc. So I had gotten really curious about that in 2019. And I wanted to launch, and then I pivoted the concept to 312 Society, which had started, the initial idea was a platform for people taking sabbaticals, both direct to consumer and selling into employers with sabbatical programs, which actually I didn't know until
That's cool.
Yeah, until I did 312 Society, I learned that about 20% of U.S. employers have a sabbatical program.
I get on that program. I need that.
Yeah, people don't know it, and then in all my user research, it was pretty incredible. So a lot of more established companies, for example, in the publishing world, the big publishing houses, have a sabbatical after 10 years.
Okay.
And then some of the more contemporary startups that have now gone public, they have it after 5 years. And as I spoke,
how long do those tend to be?
this about, they can look different lengths, at least a month.
Okay.
Some are more, and the name 312 Society came from most people take 3 to 12 months.
Huh?
So of the user research, I'd say about a third or a quarter of the people had a company sponsored sabbatical, and others just kind of took their own self-directed, self-funded time off.
I'm going to bring that up to my boss now.
Yeah, I recommend it. But what I was going to say is, it was so interesting with these people. For example, people in publishing would say, "Oh, at year 7, I wasn't that excited about my job, but then I knew my sabbatical was on the horizon." So then they stay 3 more years. So it's actually such a smart retention tool that I think is underutilized.
Yeah,
and it's a great, I think it's a great reset. People get creative energy, learn new skills. So I guess we're going, kind of some backstory. So got this idea for 312 Society. I tabled it with the pandemic. And then based on my own experience, kind of winding down my Seattle chapter, ultimately moving to Miami, I took a 1-month leave of absence from Avalara and I drove across America. And as I did all these things, all these people started coming out of the woodwork. How'd you find a short-term apartment in Miami? How did you sell so much stuff before you moved? How did you officially become a remote worker at your company? How do you move to a completely new city where you don't know anyone and build a community? All these questions, and at this time in this early 2021, it's, still in the pandemic. And I saw this opportunity, right, with the rise of remote work to kind of evolve the 312 Society concept to focus more on the remote worker. So that was my next move after Avalara, going all in. So that was the first time, I had done pitch before. MoneyBuff I always did on the side, and 312 Society was the first time I really intentionally walked away from a pretty stable job at a then public tech company to go all in on this high growth startup.
I was actually there when you first pitched 312 Society?
Yeah.
I was there at the lab when you pitched it the first time, I think.
Yeah. That was my first a formal group pitch. Yeah, at that camp.
Yeah,
camp event.
Camp.
Yeah.
Hi, Phil.
Yeah, it's kind of a funny time to be building a business because there were still not a lot of in-person meetings and events.
Yes.
So almost all my pitches were on video, and I did 2 virtual accelerators. Yeah, a lot of laptop screen time building that business.
So how long did you do 312 Society for?
Yeah, let's see. I did it about 2 years.
Okay.
So I'd say the first year I was really 100 miles an hour building the business, just all the things at once. Was a marketplace. So onboarding partners, onboarding customers, building out the technology, recruiting different people, beefing up marketing. I raised a small friends and family. I went out to raise a pre-seed and got a lot of, come back when I've hit some kind of down the road milestones. So yeah, I did it full time for 2 years. And then and then this happens, I guess this is the side of startups people don't always talk about, but it just got, I had turned over kind of all the stones. I couldn't think of any more stones to turn over. So I decided in the last few months to wind down the company.
You know, that's something interesting. I always think the mark of a good entrepreneur is twofold. It's obviously making a company work. But secondly, not what most people don't talk about is knowing when it's time to wind down, time to move on to the next thing. Because I see so many companies around that should be wind down, and the entrepreneur or founder is just killing themselves trying to make it work, and there's no product market fit or whatever the issue is, and I'm just let it go. You know, you need to spend your energy on something that is going to help you, and some things, they run their course and it's over, and it may be sad, but it's also just a part of life. So I think to me that really shows intelligence when people know, okay, this isn't working, it's time to move on to the next thing.
Yeah, thank you. And I think about one of my friends here in town, Court, has this phrase, transition with grace. So I've been thinking a lot about that. But it's a tough decision. And I think, you know, from my firsthand experience, going all in on this business, it's your baby, it's your passion, you're so excited. No one starts a business to shut it down.
Of course.
But then it's, in reality, not uncommon.
Yeah.
Right?
I think it's like 90% of startups fail, right?
Yeah. And right now, just focus on the good, right? People signed up from around the world. People from Dubai and Australia messaged me to say they love what we're building. I recruited a great team. I had great advisors. I got to revenue within a few months of launch. I was in talks with some of the biggest brands in the world to partner, you know, and I, even now and I guess we'll get to that, what's next, but as I'm talking to different people and I tell them, it's, me and my Squarespace site met with, you know, a Fortune 100 company. And then I think too, when you're in the thick of it, you don't even really take the time to think about what you're doing and what you're learning. And then you have some space, right, on the other side of it.
Yep.
And a lot of what was so special too was meeting so many other founders, just being in this great community. Yeah, because definitely it came at an opportunity cost, right?
Yeah, of course.
I walked away from something stable. I put money into the business, right? But I'm glad. I think what's that MasterCard, the priceless experience?
Yeah, priceless.
Yeah.
I think it's Visa, maybe.
Visa, yeah. But I do, and it's interesting now because people always contact me. It's just all these people out of the blue. Hey, I'm thinking of launching my first startup. Wanted to talk to you. And I think you're never really ready with any big milestone. You're never really ready. But if you've been thinking about it a lot, and I do think it's critical to have, and that's what I learned between Pitched and 312 Society, to plan ahead and have a personal cash runway so that you kind of can pay your bills and be comfortable. I think this is something that doesn't get discussed enough. And I also... Actually, to be honest, I've been thinking about writing this op-ed of the economics of being a single female founder, because I think that isn't really discussed. But yeah, definitely you want to have the cash to have flexibility of what may or may not unfold.
So I guess my question to go with this is, given the things you've done and the successes and failures that you have, do you want to continue being an entrepreneur and launching startups?
Yeah, it's interesting. And to be honest, I'd say this last year, I've been kind of in this in-between moment, and now I'm finally just working on embracing it. So I'd say at this moment, no, I don't want to launch a venture scale startup from scratch. I think building 312 Society was a lot of pushing a boulder uphill. So at this point, I'm seeking something with more momentum.
Okay.
So initially I was really focused on, joining an existing company, right, with momentum, and I've been talking to a lot of interesting companies, right, and I kind of shared my background. I've seen a lot, I've done a lot. I'm growing businesses from an operational and revenue lens, especially through partnerships and channels. But now, so I'm currently working as a fractional COO to a startup, and I'm in talks with some other companies about coming in a fractional basis. I've been doing some consulting for small businesses to help them put together a growth plan. So I'm definitely getting a lot of momentum on this fractional and consulting side of the house. So I guess, which is a different kind of profile of business, right?
Yeah.
And actually this summer, something else in my current mode is, I think for me, when I was working on Money Buff, working on 312 Society, it was a long months and years in the making, right? Of like thinking about it, writing the business plan, doing market research, talking to industry leaders. And after the summer, now my approach is a little bit throw spaghetti on the wall and move really fast and spend as little as possible and see what lands.
Yeah.
So this summer, I quickly launched something called Adult Summer Break, and it was kind of this creative project. And I, personally, I miss the simple pleasures of summers of childhood. I'm a little bit networked out of events and these other things. I want to socialize beyond just dinner and bars. So I kind of, maybe I spent a day writing a very short business plan, writing out messaging. I made a free landing page on Card. I set up Stripe. I had business banking. And then I created an application on Typeform and a waiver on JotForm. And I just moved really fast. And then, a ton of people I didn't know applied and ultimately joined. And they wrote me, I'm so excited. I've been looking for something like this. And it was, it was people from their 20s to their 50s, people who had just moved here, people who've lived here their whole life, people who grew up here and left for 10 years and came back, quite a mix. And then I decided to experiment further, and I did pop-ups around the country throughout the summer and fall in New York, DC, LA, and Seattle. The LA one was part of a conference, the All In Summit, and the unofficial events organizer invited me to come do an event. So it's been kind of fun, to be honest, to do this and not, I think in hindsight, I put a lot of pressure on my past venture. So it's kind of fun now in a way to be a bit more breezy and not have expectations and kind of see what unfolds while kind of doing it, spending as little as possible and kind of just trusting the process.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing what happens when you do what feels good, right? It may not be the biggest, craziest, most money generating thing, but when you do things that feel good, it leads to other good things. That's how it's worked in my life, at least.
I agree. And I think, too, actually, I think when you're honest and you share, it was interesting. So something I've been doing lately, I'm kind of getting back into writing. Among other things, I've been posting a few times a week on LinkedIn and trying different things about, generally sharing something educational or something I'm thinking about or something someone asked me and kind of packaging it and sharing it more broadly. Well, for example, I wrote an article about shutting down 312 Society and what I learned and the highs and the lows and what it was really. I'm a CEO of a company, honestly, that hadn't been on my radar, but really meaningful revenue. Reached out and is recruiting me now, right?
It's amazing.
So, thank you. Yeah. So, you just kind of don't know, right, what will unfold. Or earlier today, I just caught up with someone I know from college because they had liked my LinkedIn post and wanted to kind of catch up and talk about what we're both up to. So, I think there's a lot of interesting ways to lean, but something I've been working on a lot is kind of this blend of listening to what do people come to me for, what's kind of natural for me, and what do I want, and honestly, even last week, not really a business standpoint, but just something I kind of wanted in the community. And I put something together, and everyone who came was, this meant so much. Thank you so much. This was exactly what I needed, and. So I think for anyone, right, if you kind of have an instinct, put it together and people are probably interested.
It's funny you mention that. If you listen to what people are asking for, you can do really amazing things. I personally, with this space, that's something I do all the time. I sort of sit here in the office space here and just listen to what people are saying, where they're sitting, what they're trying to do, and I take that and then I iterate the physical space based on what they're saying, or our events or our programming, whatever. Yep. And when you do that and people see you do that, it really makes a huge difference. And you just have to listen sometimes. Listen and watch.
Yeah, I agree. Listen and watch. And then I think the third part of it too is, and I was thinking about this earlier today, I think be accountable.
Yes.
Right. So if you tell someone you're going to do something, do it, follow through. It's simple, but a lot of people don't. Right. But that also lends itself, I think, to your reputation and how people see you. Amazing.
Well, this has been a really good conversation. I love it, about where you've been. What about where you want to go? And there's going to be two parts here. I know you're an entrepreneur and you've done many things. So the first question is, if you could launch a company tomorrow and sort of have guaranteed funding or guaranteed support, what would it be? And two, if you had to go work at a corporation again, Miami local or otherwise, where would you say, I want to go work there? Because, they may be watching this very video.
Okay, to your first question, my answer is slightly different. So I'm kind of separately from my traditional professional path. So for some background, I studied English and journalism in college, and I love writing. And I I guess, really moved away from that side of myself these last almost like 20 years being in this professional career of consulting, tech, startups, investing. And then last summer, as 312 Society started losing momentum, I started kind of having basically more creative energy around some other ideas. Or I guess now 2 summers ago, I got an idea for a novel.
Okay.
And then about 1 year ago, I got an idea for a children's book series. And at the end of last year, I ended up writing a short story that I submitted to a local Art Basel exhibit called Love Lost. And that felt really good to just be creative. It really just flowed out of me, the story. And in the moment, I submitted it anonymously because it felt very personal. But then I let people know it was my piece. And people I met after that said, I loved that piece. I took a picture. I still look at it. And now I've been working on evolving it a bit. And I plan to submit it to Modern Love in the New York Times. And with my novel, I actually just took a class at MDC through the Miami Book Fair around nonfiction writing, and I'm kind of gaining more momentum. So I guess it's a little bit of a long way to say, I think if money were no object, I would go all in on these creative pursuits around writing these books. But since money matters, I say I'm doing that more nights and weekends. And to your second question, I don't have a specific company in mind, but really my lens now as I'm looking for what's next is somewhere I can, take my my skills and experience, right? I really love scaling companies, programs, products, from putting in great operational systems so that things can scale effectively, and then like driving revenue. And I really love partnerships. I love partnering with other companies so that we can grow together. And a lot of my lens too is a company that's solving a problem that I'm personally excited about and working somewhere with a really great culture and great people.
All right. So now I'm going to put you a little bit on the spot. Yeah. And I want you to give me a 30-second elevator pitch on Rachel if you were sort of pitching yourself to your dream company, whatever it may be. I want a 30-second elevator pitch about Rachel and what you do, what you offer.
Yeah. Okay. Hello, my name is Rachel Azaroff. I am a serial entrepreneur and startup operator. I've worked at 4 venture-backed B2B SaaS companies. I've started 4 companies. Some of my key wins have been taking a new go-to-market program from low 6-figure revenue to high 8-figure revenue, launching a new go-to-market program that 7x the goal metric within a quarter, running a scrappy startup. And I'm passionate about scaling companies and scaling things from an operational and revenue lens.
Amazing. I would hire you.
Thank you.
Amazing. This has really been a great conversation. Thank you for being here, Rachel.
Thank you for having me.
Anything you want to say in closing before we wrap this up?
In closing. Yeah, I think I'll say in closing, I was just talking about this with someone earlier. I think there's a lot of power to being authentic and being empathetic. So as you're looking for what's next or kind of sharing your thoughts out into the world, share, be yourself and be empathetic to others, and then just kind of be open to what unfolds.
Amazing. So thank you once again, Rachel, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you everyone for listening. I do this Next Act series every week, and I'm always looking for cool people to talk to. So if you are an accomplished professional looking for your next act, please reach out. And if you heard from Rachel over here and you think you would be a good match for a skill set, please reach out. We'll include your LinkedIn in the description of this video. So once again, thank you for watching, everyone, and I will see you again next week. Thank you. And thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.